Good evening, dear friends. Welcome, dear Ümit.
Greetings, everyone.
Yes, we are at the 82nd video of the Divine Order and the Universe Reading and Commentary series. Shall we begin reading? The place that mankind who have been completely freed from the world by dying in the Great World Cataclysm will directly go to, as we mentioned, is a semi-subtle higher plan relative to the world which we call the Plan of Love. In this plan, the prevailing reality is love. More correctly, mankind who will pass there will live there for a while in order to perform various applications of love in that plan, and consequently, to become able to completely adapt to the higher necessities of the Plan of Duty. Thus, the semi-subtle realm, or the Plan of Love, is above all an intermediary plan. That is, it is an intermediary plan which ensures the transition of mankind, who have been freed from the heavy burdens of world realities, to the very subtle Plan of Duty through an easy, sweet, and happy advance. In order to be able to pass to a higher stage, after the completion of every stage of material development, it is imperative for all beings, plant, animal, human, to go through such intermediary plans. For, the functions of these plans are very significant. For example, at some stage an animal being has attained the merit of utilizing a body in a higher stage, that is, the human body, after properly completing the stage of animality. This lasts for a very long time, and the animal being cannot immediately leap to humanness from the stage of animality. For, even if it has properly developed in its own right, there are still very significant and profound differences between using the animal body it has used so far, and using a human body. So, that being, after going through certain transitional stages between the body realities, will be able to adapt completely to the necessities of humanness, and to adjust using the human body properly. Therefore, it needs to live in a plan which will allow it to do such a transitional preparation. And this is its semi-subtle realm. Here that being encounters some situations which prepare it to the necessities of humanness, and after doing its transitional application in those situations for a while, it steps into the human realm in order to start from its most primitive stage. However, he still cannot immediately enter into the state of an independent human being. First, it enters a state of ability to build the components of the human brain, and afterwards, by living in the human brain cells for a long time and rendering the applications of human body management as required, that is, upon acquiring the merit of using a human body independently. It connects to the world by bonding to a human body in order to use that body for its following evolutions, and it embodies with a body in the state of human, and later, as we previously said, it completes all evolutionary stages in the world with its human body.
The most important point of this passage is that the Plan of Love is not our final destination. No, it is an intermediary plan. Just how there are mandatory and preparatory intermediary plans between the developmental stages, from plan to animal and from animal to human stages. In the same way, the Plan of Love will prepare beings by providing us with the possibilities of its semi-subtle matter combinations, and with the various appearances of love, in order to complete our shortcomings. Even though our being spends a period of time in the spatium for the great accounting after the death of our physical body, we cannot go to the Plan of Duty right away. Because between our being's more or less lingering worldly influences in its magnetic field and the Plan of Duty, there are immense differences in comprehension and time perception. So, this intermediary plan is for completing our shortcoming and inexperience regarding the processing, manipulating, and mastering semi-subtle matter combinations. I can say that what is meant by the symbol of heaven in the religious texts sound like the Plan of Love's initial steps, hence, its levels closer to the world reality, however. After those initial levels, this is a milieu or environment providing the beings with various temporal and material possibilities via the intense manifestations of true love, in order to prepare them to the Plan of Duty. And in the previous pages and passages of this book, we had read that the human stage, or more correctly, the lifetimes the being builds bodies to experience human stage as a necessary stage of its spiritual development, is actually for preparing beings to the Plan of Duty. And our true aim is to reach the Plan of Duty. And all of our activities at the human stage, in the hydrogen cosmos, are oriented to render the necessities of becoming of that plan. And this intermediary plan called Plan of Love is to complete our lacking points that may delay our immersion to the Plan of Duty. If we take notice the immense differences of required steps the beings have to climb up within each stage before gaining the merit of passing to the next stage, we can understand the importance and imperative of such preparatory intermediary plans. Go and try imagining the immense differences between human stage and the Plan of Duty. And in this passage, another interesting and striking information we read in this book. Developmental level of a single brain cell being is way beyond the developmental level of a high animal. We read here that there are certain transitional stages between the body realities, and a being has to adapt completely to the necessities of the next stage.
Yes. As we read the divine order and the universe, we learnt that the being does not enter or exit a body, but as it builds a body, it governs that body's growth process by the influences it sends by induction to the physical brain cells of the fetus. And these influences sent by the essence being are the magnetic field synthesis of the former body's brain cells beings. Because after the physical death of the previous physical body, because the daily consciousness and unconscious are not functional anymore, and because all impressions belonging to that lifetime are shifted to the subconscious of the essence being's field of consciousness, and the essence being keeps the magnetic field synthesis of the brain cells beings of the former body as a storage bank for the next body it will build. After the essence being goes through the great accounting period in the isolated state of the spatium, and after the lessons to be retaken and the lacking points to be completed are added to the new life plan outlined. And even we learnt that, after completing its development as a single human brain cell, such a brain cell being can leave its former brain system, and it can begin the developmental process of becoming able to govern a complete human body. But please notice, not right away. It has to follow all those steps and levels in the stage it needs to get developed. So yes, we talk about single cell beings, a single brain cell being, a single liver cell being, etc. Yes, we are actually a whole system of beings. Yes, there is a commander governing our body, yet the system it governs contains millions and billions of cells and their beings. And we see the best examples of holonic system in our bodies that is built on whole-part relationships and managed by a distributed system of elements. This is an immense network branching to the ever smaller elements. I mean, even we think of the millions of gut bacteria we have, and among them, there are beneficial bacteria and harmful bacteria. Therefore, even upon a single system, as a multi-layered and multifaceted structure, it is possible to provide and ensure the development of innumerable beings, and consequently the evolution of their spirits. And this book defines the being as a complex systemic ensemble of influences and energies. Of course, as human beings in this physical bodies, we always assume that as though our current identity, this Tülin or this Ümit, is in our essence being. However, this is only an expression of the wholeness brought out by all those beings that make up this physical body. Yes, when death happens, the personality, or as we read in this passage, its heavy burdens of world realities does not vanish right away. This is the reason why the emotional and mental dregs of that lifetime has to be processed in the spatium period. But all the deep impressions of those 500 to 700 lifetimes are processed and accumulated at a single perceptual point of comprehension, and that's the essence being. And these transitions from one developmental stage to another does not only happen from plant to animal to human stages. We read in this book that between the stages of animality to humanity, there are also extraterrestrial experiences of the beings on the different planets of the solar system. There is not much detail about such experiences of beings. Yet again, this book states that the most advanced school of development in our solar system is our world, our planet. And again, on the previous passages we had read, And we need to remember at this point that intermediary milieus have their own semi-subtle matter that is unique to each. I mean, the semi-subtle matter of the intermediary plan between plant stage to animality stage is not the same semi-subtle matter of the intermediary plan between animality stage to human stage. Yes, for the last 5 or 6 weeks, we have read about the cataclysmic events that will close this world cycle, and this means tumultuous ways of dying for the majority of the humankind. And here, we read about what will happen after. I mean, we begin to read about details about the plan of love the humankind will pass to after the closing of this world school. And in this semi-subtle realm, the main difference for the beings reaching the plan of love is there are not severe extreme swinging of the duality, or the coarser qualities of the matter in the hydrogen cosmos. The progress in this semi-subtle realm will be still grounded, and in a fluidic hierarchy, but level by level.
Actually, the hard truth, that everything has to progress gradually, step by step, level by level, stage by stage that are almost eternally long have been told and explained to humankind many times, and especially underlined in the spiritualism, neo-spiritualism, and of course, especially in the divine order in the universe. That development and evolution is always directed to the ever higher, ever subtler, and ever ideal. That there are no jumps up or down between stages of plant, animality, and humanity. And this is also valid for our personal life as well. No person can transcend his or her own self spontaneously or suddenly. Neither a person can become developed just by reading this or that book, by sitting beside a teacher or guru, or by taking this or that position. From this passage we can glean this fact that everything in life should be gradually, by making efforts and super efforts. And about my words about the initial levels of the plan of love, yes, these are more akin to the symbolism and descriptions of heaven in the religious texts. I think the great Anatolian poet and sage Yunus Emre intuited this and wrote those verses. What they called the heaven is just a few mansions and a few auras. Give them to the ones who want them. You, only you, what I need is. Because, as we can easily understand from what we read about the plan of love and plan of duty, the aim of the being is not having an infinite afterlife in peace at this plan of love. The being's aim and the reason of this semi-subtle realm's existence is to complete the lacking points in the being's development so it can continue toward the higher levels that will prepare it for the plan of duty.
Yes, maybe it is better to underline this once more. In the hydrogen cosmos, if we can imagine a cross-section, there are coarse levels of matter at below, and matter levels get increasingly subtler. After all, thoughts and emotions are of matter. There are even researchers measuring the vibrational frequency of emotions, of love, of compassion, and we see there is a scale of such subtler matter. So, we should not make a mistake of thinking subtler levels of the hydrogen cosmos as same as the semi-subtle matter of the plan of love. After all, because that the human beings completed the human stage and transcended the hydrogen cosmos matter, and consequently, passed to the semi-subtle matter milieu. Then of course, the conditions of world matter, the incarnations in physical bodies, and also worldly appearances, are out of question for the plan of love.
I remember from the earlier passages of this book, I think it was page 90 or 91st, even though rarely, sometimes and through a deep contemplation, we can intuit the relatively free states of our true being outside our body, and we name this as inner being, essential self, higher self, etc. Therefore, I think that there are levels or parts of this semi-subtle realm that are closer to the frequency of our world, and some influences from those levels are reflected on our organism, maybe as visions or inspirations. And as you said, even these seemingly fixed, concrete, coarse matter of the hydrogen cosmos, there are subtle and subtler matter levels such as thoughts, emotions, ideas. These are also appearances of matter, and in that sense, mastering a negative emotion means mastering matter. And actually, we process these subtler and ever-changing appearances of matter all the time. And this processing is also a preparation for the ever subtler levels of semi-subtle realm.
Your words reminded me the current level of virtual reality technology or metaverse, and all kinds of virtual simulations. As your body is sitting in your room, your senses say otherwise because of the images and sounds your sense organs receive from a virtual headset. And when you wear a full-body haptic suit, you can interact with other people's avatars in a virtual environment, and you can even feel their handshake, touching your avatar's body, etc. I even read about that researchers are working on ways of transmitting frequencies that will result as taste and scent. I think these are our rehearsals for a cosmos that can change and transform by the power of imagination. We human beings are getting prepared for a completely different system. Of course, in our world of duality, human beings get developed by making choices either from the intuition of duty component of the conscience mechanism or from the sensuality component. That is, all kinds of knowledge we acquire as we get more and more technological breakthroughs can be utilized for the greater good of the whole humanity, or can be manipulated and exploited for the self-servicing reasons. Still, the determining factor in a being's spiritual development is how and for which purpose the being utilizes the knowledge. Yes, let's continue reading. The semi-subtle realm which the mankind needs to go through in order to pass into the superhuman plan is incomparable in scope and extent to the intermediary plans which are needed to be gone through while passing from the subhuman realm to the stage of human. Intermediary plans have their own particular means to prepare the beings from the lower plan for the higher plan. These means belong to neither the realities of the plans they have left, nor the realities of a higher plan. These are merely vehicles which ensure the transition of mankind, who will pass from the lower plan to the higher without any shocks in the face of the differences which exist between these two plans, in other words, their adaptation to the unaccustomed realities of the higher plan in the shortest way, and these vehicles in one aspect contact the realities of the plan left behind and in other aspects display some states akin to the next plan. However, they are actually neither the realities of the plan left behind nor the realities of the plan to be passed to, they are merely a preparatory mechanism particular to the intermediary plan.
This semi-subtle realm expresses the shifting of the hydrogen cosmos at some point toward the higher realm. The experiences the beings have in the parts of the semi-subtle realm that are closer to our world are akin to the worldly realities. However, the parts of the semi-subtle realm that are closer to the plan of duty have completely different time and completely different space conditions. I remember the book of Albert Pochard, titled as The Other World, its infinite possibilities, its spheres of beauty and joy. Mr. Ruhselman, in one of his earlier books, had some excerpts from Pochard's book on the imaginative activity or the observations of the beings the hereafter, and some of these were profound, and together with the symbols in the religious books regarding heaven, some of these observations make me think if these are about the levels that are closer to the world realities, because in those religious books, the heaven is described as a place where anything we want manifests. And in this book, we read about the importance of imagination ability in this semi-subtle realm. We understand that this ability allows the beings to manipulate the structure of semi-subtle matter in accordance with the content of their imagination. And if this ability has to be developed before the beings pass to the plan of duty, then a widened comprehension together with the refined ability to master matter combinations will be essential in the plan of duty. Because, in the plan of duty, beings will need to convey, send, or transmit various types of influences, let's say to the world. Therefore, they need to be able transforming the intensity of such influences in varying degrees and ways. If we don't have the power to process that semi-subtle realm, we cannot convey an influence from there to here. Therefore, in the plan of love, we learn how to utilize and manipulate this type of matter, and also, we learn the possibilities of this semi-subtle realm. Besides, we adapt our comprehension to the space-time conditions of this realm. This is another explanation of how we complete our lacking points. Had we been sent there as we currently are, We would be like a toddler attending a theoretical physics lecture in college. And yes, soon we will learn that the main reality of the semi-subtle realm is love, and in completing our lacking points, love will be our main vehicle in that plan. And we already learnt that love is an attraction felt towards anything. How could a being cannot be attracted to the manifestations like watching a musical composition, instead of just hearing and listening to it? Try to imagine all those beings forming, deforming, and transforming the semi-subtle matter as they like. Yes, I think at this stage, the merit of becoming able to witness, to partake in such a plan, evokes the feeling of joy, wonder, and awe in the beings. I mean, when we watch a sunset in this world, we feel wonder and joy, saying, "Oh my God, how beautiful your work is." And imagine the deep impressions our beings will receive as we witness all those manifestations of myriad imaginations. I think this can only be defined as bliss and joy. Now I see my huge grin from ear to ear on the screen as I talk about this semi-subtle plan. Try imagine me there.
That's why the plan says, "Long for the moment you will be of that harmony." Yes, such a longing exists. And they describe this semi-subtle realm in such beautiful way that we can continue on our path towards this aim. Otherwise, life events would be too overwhelming and too exhausting for all of us. At the end of even the worst possible day, we sleep, and our essence being bathes us with so many influences during our sleep that, when we wake up, we continue walking the path of life. I think we need to reread this part of this passage. Intermediary plans have their own particular means to prepare the beings from the lower plan for the higher plan. These means belong to neither the realities of the plans they have left, nor the realities of a higher plan. These are merely vehicles. In one aspect, contact the realities of the plan left behind, and in other aspects, display some states akin to the next plan. However, they are actually neither the realities of the plan left behind, nor the realities of the plan to be passed to. They are merely a preparatory mechanism particular to the intermediary plan. Let's look at the humankind. As we are getting closer to the closing of this world cycle, we try hard to establish small or big-scale examples of unions, unities, collaborations, and cooperations that we can say similar to the states in the plan of love. But we read here that these are nor the realities of a higher plan. I mean, no matter how we perceive our best examples of such unities as similar to the states in this semi-subtle plan, we cannot have or manifest the states particular to this intermediary plan. And just look at our seemingly best examples of unities, eventually, due to self-interests, egoistical tendencies, turf wars, etc., all those attempts of establishing a unity become fragmented into smaller groups of common interests. This is something we observe even in the spiritual circles. People gather with the purpose of establishing a unity for sharing and teaching knowledge. Then, at some point, one person or group say, "Our way is more correct, my knowledge exceeds yours," etc., etc. So, yes, in this world reality, we are doing rehearsals or exercises of some similar states and applications. Yes, we are developing our spiritual muscles for the harder work laying ahead on our path, so none of these exercises are in vain. Because, when all those deep impressions we gained from all those lifetimes are reflected to our essence being as essential knowledge, then these will determine the levels within the plan of love. Yes, there are myriad developmental levels of human beings in a vast spectrum within current humanity, and if the intention for the majority of humankind to pass into the plan of love, then our current efforts in this world will be very important in regard to determining whether our experiences continue in the lower levels of the plan of love, or in the levels closer to the plan of duty. Therefore, all kinds of unities, unions, collaborations, cooperations we are trying to establish against all odds. How we conscientiously act for altruistic reasons, not for our egoistical needs, but for the well-being of the whole, all those small and big sacrifices and examples of selflessness we display, not emotionally but because we understand their necessity in our more or less comprehending states. All and similar efforts will carry us to those levels of the plan of love that are much closer to the plan of duty. Yes, we read and understand here that the higher reality of the plan of love is the plan of duty. Hence, similar to our current situation in this world, regardless of how high we reach to the upper levels of the plan of love, and how similar the states we display to the plan of duty, the true states and reality of the plan of duty will not be experienced in the plan of love. Again, we read here, intermediary plans have their own particular means to prepare the beings from the lower plan for the higher plan. So, when we pass to the plan of love, we will be experiencing various stages and levels of its particular reality that is governed and arranged and rearranged moment by moment, in accordance with the needs of the beings by the plans and beings in duty. After all, we had read that to prepare the beings for the higher levels of reality, the sublimating influences are sent from higher level to lower level. And if we care to look closely, we can see that there are not only murders, battles, wars, conflicts happening in our world, as the social media tries hard to convince us. Because we are somehow detached from nature, we can become easily manipulated by the artificial products or artifacts of things. However, we need to go back to nature in order to see the vitality, thriving dynamism that are almost bursting forth from the soil and the seas. We need to direct our attention to different areas of our communities in order to see innumerable examples of solidarity and cooperation. Just because we don't see, hear, witness, observe, read or watch about the aid, donations or support given, we assume that such things don't happen anymore. Yet, in our Anatolian culture, giving aid must be so secretive that even your ego must be unaware of it. Yes, please turn off your TV and mobiles, just do some social media and TV series detox, and turn your gaze into parts and fields of life you did not look at for a while. You will see other side of world life. Some of our dear friends comment that their pets display human-like behaviors. Yes, sometimes I observe such seemingly humane behaviors in my cats and dogs. Still, let me underline once more, yes, similar behaviors, but these do not mean that they became humans, that they experience human reality. Please be careful about this distinction.
Your words reminded me the one of previous passages we had read about the Mu civilization briefly, saying that majority of the humankind back then had to die and pass to the plan of love, because there were major developmental differences between them, and the minority that needs more experiences in the New World cycle. In other words, these two groups of humankind cannot exist in the same milieu. I mean, yes, right now all of us coexist within more or less a stable equilibrium, but after a certain point, it means imbalance, hence the necessity of the cataclysmic events during the closing period of the world cycle.
Yes, let's continue reading. The preparatory means of the semi-subtle realm, that is, of the intermediary plan which the mankind will enter after the world, is love. The love in here, although it is not the love as it is understood and felt in the world, nonetheless has an aspect which is close to the one in the world. Although the love in the world is different than the concept of true love in the plan of duty, nonetheless it has the value and quality which can be a preparatory step to that love. Because of this, thanks to this preparation he has done in the world, a human being who acquired the merit of entering the realm of love, that is the semi-subtle realm, will participate in this great mechanism of love, which is completely different from the love in the world and incomparable to it in its scope and extent. The thing that beings should do in this plan is to utilize the miscellaneous variations of this very encompassing and extended love, in order to benefit from their possibilities which are preparatory for the higher plan of duty. Therefore, the quality, which cannot be understood by world mankind, of the love in here displays very powerful states, which ensure the beings in the intermediary plan to adapt to the higher realities of the plan of duty. For completely accepting and adapting to the plan of duty is not an easy task. Success in here has technical issues which entail many efforts.
When a being outlines a life plan, with the assistance of the beings in duty, for an incarnation as a human being in the world, that being kind of promises to stay faithful to this life plan. Yet even if that being becomes totally immersed in the sensuality and earthly cravings, acts and chooses in completely contradictory manner, forgets all the promises it made, etc., the beings in duty don't stop sending influences, they don't stop giving assistance. They don't give up on human beings. Let's assume that you are a master of a craft, and you hired me as an apprentice, yet I do so many and so gross mistakes that, after a certain point, you tell me don't come back tomorrow. Their patience and understanding is vastly immense. I think, until those beings become developed enough to be included in the plan of duty, they must have already embodied such encompassing characteristics, and I am sure the developmental process of going through innumerable appearances of true love during their applications in the plan of love immensely contributed to this state of the beings in duty. Who loves us most in this life? Our mother, our father, our spouse, our children. Yes, these are worldly appearances of love, but I am sure that, with ever higher appearances of true love, the beings in duty lend a helping hand to all beings for advancing their development. Yes, within each of us there is a morsel of love, a taste of love, and when we pass to the plan of love we will hold on the matter combination in sync with what we have as love. And this sympathization will get developed more and more. Maybe at first all we can experience the variations of love in accordance with our power of imagination. But as we encounter more and more beings that already process such materials in the plan of love, we will become attracted to their level of experience and development in displaying subtler appearances of love. And even our detachment from the semi-subtle realm will happen via a similar process of becoming synced with ever higher vibrations. We read the examples of such observations and encounters in the books related to the spiritual communiqués and to the conversations with the deceased beings. For example, a person dies and what he or she conveys to the medium about their current environment in the hereafter looks like a farm, or that person is a priest preaching to a congregation. Yet, when they encounter other beings that are from higher levels, their descriptions become like a dazzling divine light emanates from this person, or seeing those beings fill me with bliss, etc. Well, eventually we will leave our bodies just as we are born into this world, and as beings in this eternal path of spiritual development, with the assistance and help of the beings in duty, we will be reaching to these destined spaces. And this is the manifestation of divine justice. What is destined for a bird, a plant, or fungi is also destined for us as well. As the central point within the circle of existence, the original principle is at an equal distance from all that is. I wish that all of us gain the merit of climbing those destined steps towards the variations of true love.
You reminded, but let me repeat this definition of love we read in the Divine Order in the Universe, I think, on page 136. Love is the attraction felt towards anything. As the saying goes, like attracts like. What does this mean? If we stay with negative thoughts, negative choices and actions, life events will bring more of these, not the positive ones, and even if positive things happen, we may not be aware of these. And we read in this book that variations of love is a vast spectrum, for example, even of flowers turning towards the sunshine, and the planets keeping a stable orbit around the sun, our planets revolving around its axis, etc., are also variations of love. In one of the spiritual communiqués, we read that love is completing a lacking point of another being. Well, in our world, our love is conditional. This is our way of loving. If this or that is there, then all right, I love you. Or in other words, our love is not oriented towards completing a lacking point. On the contrary, it is all about finding the lacking point for not to love. Consequently, we live and experience the manifestations of love in accordance with our own reality. Our most passionate feelings can easily turn into hate, and even the most seemingly subtle versions, such as love we feel for our children, may turn into other feelings. Well, in this point, we need to remember this fact: this is the human condition. As we learn from some esoteric teachings, we are not yet completely human, we are just on the path of becoming humans. As you said, if the original principle in the center, and all that is at equal distance to this central point, then this means that there is no creature in existence that has not been subject to that original influence. I mean, even the amorphous matter attracted the initial influence coming from sublime principles. As the creation happens, and as a spirit grasps a particle of matter in that eternally long and passive adaptation stage, was not that love in action? Love is such a force that it also had brought out a state that can attract the influence of the original principle to matter. Yes, matter is passive and that influence mechanism is active, yet we know that, in this system, nothing flows from one point to another accidentally. We can even say that motion occurs through love. Nowadays, love means only emotional, sensual love. However, as you nicely expressed, when our essence being still has some lacking points even after hundreds of lifetimes, let's say full of actions, decisions and choices that were made from the sensuality, from the earthly craving side of the conscience mechanism, the beings in duty tell to our being. Yes, so far you experienced lifetimes at the negative end of the duality, and you encountered and experienced the consequences of those actions. Here, another chance for you at incarnation. Now go back and see how you can choose and act from the intuition of duty component of the conscience mechanism. And this is another manifestation of divine love. This is why we need an ever-widening perspective when we look at our personal life and all its connections to the ever-widening levels of the divine system. We can easily give up loving and trusting each other, but thankfully, the spiritual plans of the being sin duty and our essence beings don't give up truly loving us human beings.
I'd like to add a sentence from a spiritual communiqué received from a being that named itself Voyager of Perfection, conducted by Mr. Ruhselman. Don't disdain anyone, because if you do, then this means that your prism is dirty. During our almost eternal journey toward perfection, we have been cells, tissues, organs, brain cells, brain, and the governing center of plants, animals, and after reaching the human stage, we have been murderers, cannibals, rapists, torturers, abusers, etc. As the saying goes, been there, done that. I think we have experienced all states, but due to our general unawareness about these facts, we now can dare to disdain other living beings. Well, such sentences from spiritual beings and examples from the life of the beings with duty remind us again and again this fact that we cannot disdain, because back then we were just that. We see people that deem some animals dirty due to their belief and avoid touching them. Yet their religious book has the examples of Prophet Job, putting the worms that fell down to soil back to the wounds in his body by thinking that that worm should not be denied of its lot. Yes, most of us are ignorant regarding to our own essence. Just as Prophet Jesus Christ prayed for forgiveness for his tormentors, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Even the ones that supposedly know better are still ignorant about many experiences they had in their own past lifetimes, in many negative roles. So, without knowing what we are doing, we did many mistakes. Nevertheless, now, as we learn and become more informed, the most important point is not to do mistakes by knowing that this is a mistake.
Yes, let's check the questions on the chat box. A dear friend asks, does everyone that passed to the plan of love become a being in duty?
Well, next week we will read more about the plan of duty, but still, I can briefly tell you that after a certain level or stage in the plan of love, at its higher levels, of course, beings that are so far more or less individual come together as groups of 5 or 6 beings and pass to the initial levels of the plan of duty.
Another friend commented as, we come to this world naked and we leave this world naked. Yes, we cannot take anything tangible from our worldly life when we die, if this is what you mean. However, naked does not mean empty. Because we had discussed throughout this reading and commentary series that none of our lifetimes are in vain. In each lifetime, we gain deep impressions, and these are transformed into essential knowledge after the end of each physical life, in the Spechium period, when our essence being compares these recent impressions with the accumulated essential knowledge in its field of subconscious, to understand what is left unfinished, which lessons need to be retaken, etc. So, we leave this world with deep impressions, and we don't come to this world empty either. Because the magnetic field synthesis of the brain cells beings that experience the previous physical body are kept in the greater field of our essence being, and when it need to build another body in the hydrogen cosmos, this magnetic field synthesis will be the template for the influences sent by the being to the newly forming brain of the fetus in the mother's womb. As you can see, our life is not in vain, not empty of meaning or purpose. Yes, you may say that some of our lifetimes are spent without any effort and work, but even those are not in vain, because we experience the consequences of this lethargic lifetimes, and we learn to make better choices. This is how we learn, by value differentiation, by knowledge of comparison. Each speck and dot in the universe is in service of the evolution of spirits. Yes, with these words, let me wish you a good evening and a good week. Thank you for your attendance. Hoping to see you all next week, probably in the last video of this reading and commentary series.
Good evening, dear friends.